Prey, the first prequel and newest addition to the Predator series, debuted on Hulu this August. It was a terrific watch, with a unique and immersive setting, memorable characters, impressive action, and effective horror sequences. It's really a shame that this movie did not get a theatrical release, because it deserves it. Plus, the set pieces and cinematography would have been nice to see on the big screen. The plot is centered around a tribe of Comanche Native Americans in the early 1700s that come into contact with the Predator after it lands near their settlement. We follow Naru as she tries to prove her worth as a hunter and goes after the Predator to protect her people from him. Now, I had conflicting expectations going in, even though overall the solo Predator franchise is an entertaining one. Well, aside from the Predator, the sequels were a little disappointing to me, some better than others, but nothing truly held a candle to the original. Prey, on the other hand, was particularly excellent because it exemplified exactly what makes a Predator movie work. It simplified the plot to focus on the two things that made the first film so outstanding: the intimidating, relentless, and specific nature of the Predator, and the clever and compelling acts the prey does to survive. I wanted to talk about why this movie and the original work so well, and why the others, Predator 2, Predators, and The Predator, don't really maximize their potential as Predator movies. In other words, what actually helps make the ideal Predator film, and what doesn't. Before I begin, I will be spoiling these movies a bit so I can talk about their plot points and elements that either help or hinder their success. If you haven't seen the original Predator or Prey, I highly suggest you do, since they are wonderful. The other three are not as good, but they all have their pros and cons, and if they interest you, definitely give them a watch. Also, I will not be talking about the Alien vs. Predator movies or any of the Predator books. Let's begin with the one that started it all. Predator was released in 1987. While initially it had mixed reviews, it is now considered a sci-fi classic with plenty of iconic moments that are now part of pop culture. This movie sets up the Predator as a hulking and menacing, highly intelligent, and heavily equipped villain whose life revolves around hunting big game and proving its worth as an apex predator. Because of this movie, the Predator is a recognizable movie monster in the sci-fi genre. Not only that, but the film is not just any old monster movie. It's subversive, as it contrasts action-heavy scenes and cliché macho hero moments with episodes of suspense and seriousness as its characters encounter their hunter. It humbles its seemingly invincible main protagonists who are willing to wipe out anything in their way by being decimated by an even more advanced killing machine that requires more than just brute strength to defeat. To lightly go over the main plot, we follow Dutch as he leads a small group, in number, not stature, of soldiers sent to rescue a government official whose helicopter crashed in a Central American jungle. But of course, that's not why they're really there. After they eliminate the guerrilla base nearby, they are attacked by an unfamiliar hunter, the Predator, who picks them off one by one. Eventually, it's just Dutch and the creature, and instead of relying on his muscles and guns, he uses his wits to outsmart the beast and kill it. This movie makes many smart decisions to build up the tension and subvert our expectations. For example, when they find the helicopter, they also see a few skinned bodies near the crash, showing our first bit of gore and foreshadowing the horror still to come. Dutch discovers that one of the corpses belongs to a soldier he knew, which makes him question the true nature of this mission, amping up the mystery and suspense. After their attack on the guerrilla base, we switch genres from a patriotic, gun-fueled action to sci-fi thriller with a slasher horror tone. The Predator is invisible by using cloaking technology, adding more uncertainty as our heroes can't even see what's hunting them. Its kills are brutal, from someone being sliced and diced, to another being shot in the chest with a futuristic plasma blast. Another great scene that really hits the theme home is when the group releases a barrage of bullets into the jungle, still not fully aware of what is happening to them, and proving their guns to be useless as they hit nothing. Once all of his friends are dead, Dutch is very much afraid, starkly different to how he was at the beginning of the movie. Extremely humbled and covered in mud, we get an exciting final sequence of their face-off, with an exchange of fire, a fist fight, a reverse psychology booby trap, and ultimately a battle of wits, in which Dutch is victorious in the end. The movie balances out loud action with plenty of quiet, tension-filled moments that could be straight out of any grade A horror movie, and is now rightfully a classic. It establishes the Predator as a formidable villain and shows off how he hunts. Even these buff, trained soldiers are not invincible like all the action movies of the time made them out to be, and are instead victims, or maybe I should say prey, in a slasher film. We see them slowly go from extremely confident to scared for their lives, as they are the ones being hunted now. On top of all that excellent storytelling and atmosphere, the film is fast-paced, has likable characters so you are upset when they are killed, and has effective special and visual effects. It is an amazing start to the franchise, and all these elements truly illustrate just how scary being hunted by the Predator can be. It demonstrates how to properly make a Predator movie, even on the first try. Prey is a prequel to the first Predator movie, and despite it being the 5th film in the franchise, I believe it is the most similar to the original, in both tone and story. In my opinion, it is also the best movie since the first because of that, along with its unique setting and characters. Set in 1719, in the northern Great Plains in North America, we follow Naru, a young Comanche woman who has been trained to be a healer for her tribe, but her true passion is hunting. She discovers that there is an unknown creature lurking in the nearby land and goes on to hunt it to protect her tribe. Using her skills in observation and her quick wit, she defeats the Predator, using the environment and even the Predator's weapons against it. It is a concise plot that focuses on the art of the hunt in every way. We observe Naru as she learns it, as the invading Frenchmen make a mockery of it, and the Predator as he executes it with finesse. Naru grows from her mistakes and overcomes her fears to do what is best for her people, to become the hunter she has always wanted to be and the one her tribe needs her to be. Throughout the first act, we have seen the Predator hunt and fight against any creature he deems as another hunter or predator. He is seeking the ultimate foe to prove his worth as an apex predator, and we know he will eventually face off humans and Naru specifically. This adds to the audience's understanding of this alien's motives and fighting style. The movie nicely lays down the foundation throughout the story as it all comes together at the end. We learn about the Predator along with Naru and how best to beat it. When it fights off a bear, we are shown its immense strength. She can't beat it in a fist fight and will have to outsmart it. When a searching party from the tribe finds Naru and unfortunately runs into the Predator, it slaughters them, showing how ruthless and precise this villain truly is. When Naru and her brother get captured by French warriors and are used as bait for the Predator, there is a grand fight sequence as the alien proves that their firearms are no match for him, and brutally kills each man with a wide variety of lethal attacks. It is beautifully shot and successful in showing how futile it is to try and fight it. But the scene, and the next, also act as a way for Naru to study her enemy. She figures out that one of her medicinal plants helps humans hide from its sight. She sets up an assortment of traps for it, with many of them being callbacks to earlier scenes, showing Naru has observed and learned everything she needs to defeat the beast. She uses her surroundings, and even the Predator's technology against it to win. Just like the original, brains, not brawn, were needed to vanquish the Predator. This film's story feels like a natural prequel to the first, while still feeling unique because of its gorgeous setting and great characters. This movie, along with the original, really exemplified the quintessential Predator movie. It is intentional in its storytelling and focuses on what it means to be a predator. On to the sequels, starting with Predator 2. I understand Predator 2 is nostalgic for some people. It's not for me personally, but I get why people love this movie. It is certainly a fun watch that enriches the lore and focuses on action and kills. Danny Glover is fully committed to his role as Harrigan and brings depth to his character in an otherwise wild film. The movie is campy, which works at times. Interestingly enough, critics at the time complained that the movie was mean-spirited, cold, and too violent. But it's a Predator film, so that didn't really bother me at all. The problem I have is that there are a lot of elements in the movie that, when adding the campiness on top, unnecessarily complicates it and detracts from the Predator aspect. For the plot, the film is set 10 years after the first, in a gang war-torn Los Angeles, with Lieutenant Harrigan trying to protect the city from rival gangs. The Predator slays many gang members and quite a few from Harrigan's team. It becomes a revenge film after a certain point, as Harrigan then pursues the Predator and ultimately defeats it, and is even spared by other Predators as they respect his win. The movie can be a bit overwhelming at times. The beginning of the film is especially over the top, which was probably intentional, but it ends up making everything confusing, especially with all the expositional dialogue overlapping the gunfire. This seems to be an ongoing theme in the movie. For instance, in another scene, the Predator murders a couple of side characters on a subway train. It would have been a cool scene if we could see it. I'm sure the strobe lighting was used to make it more intense or scarier, but it comes off as disruptive. The plot is alright, but there were some contradicting moments. When Harrigan shoots a gang member on the roof, the Predator doesn't try to kill Harrigan. It's nice that the Predator is established as a threat early on, but it's apparently not a threat to our main character. They explain that it only attacks someone if they are armed, like the original film, but Harrigan seems to be immune to that logic. Even if the Predator respects him and wants to fight him one-on-one, like in the original, it had plenty of chances to do that early on. Anyway, there are some great action scenes in the movie though. When the Predator eliminates an entire special ops team specifically equipped to capture it, it's gripping, proves how skilled the Predator is as a killer, and we are introduced to upgraded vision tech. The duel at the end with Harrigan is also a terrific sequence. When he wins, other Predators appear, take away their fallen comrade, acknowledge his achievement, and give him a trophy. So while the movie does have a lot going on, it does enrich the lore, with us getting more information on the Predator species, their customs, and tech. It flips the script from the first film, and has Harrigan hunting the Predator. He is out for revenge instead of vying for survival like in the original. It's not perfect, but it's still a fun, crazy action movie that's entertaining to watch. And you know the movie didn't take itself too seriously, since they literally made a music video with dancing predators. It's a B movie that's loud and knows it, but with its slightly overloaded script and overwhelming direction, it at times can feel more like an action movie with the Predator in it, as opposed to a Predator movie. Predators is the third film in the franchise, and it is alright. Definitely my favorite of the three sequels. It's similar in setting and characters to the original, with a bunch of armed soldiers trying to survive in the jungle. It's a strong sequel in this franchise specifically, because it focuses heavily on the Predator's hunt and survival of the ones subjected to it, while introducing other kind of predators and more lore. A quick rundown of the plot. We follow a group of individuals, including our main characters Royce and Isabel, abducted and unaware of their situation and whereabouts. They are all killers from different parts of Earth and have been placed on an alien planet where they are meant to be hunted by predators as part of their hunting season. They all end up dying, of course, either by weird alien dogs or the predators, except for Royce and Isabel, who outlast two predators and execute the last one. So the plot completely makes sense for a Predator movie. I mean, it's literally about the predators hunting them. There are many callbacks to the original movie, some good, like when we see handmade traps by a man from a previous hunting season, just like Dutch in the first film, only this time it obviously failed. We're shown the psychological toll a situation like this can do to someone, as Lawrence Fishburne's character has been on the planet for around 10 hunting seasons. Unfortunately, he doesn't really add anything to the movie, only really there to move the story along. There are different styles of combat, and we see how the Predator reacts, with a great scene of a Yakuza member sword fighting one of them to the death. The audience also learns more about the alien's emotional intelligence and ability to understand people. There's a point when Royce tries to talk to a lower level predator and convinces it to take him home. That predator then fights the last remaining big boss predator, and the dynamic between the rival predators is interesting. Royce and Isabel kill the last predator just to see that another hunting season has started the next morning, indicating that the seasons continue to occur even if by that time all the predators have been defeated. It's pretty bleak. However, it does contradict Predator 2's ending, with them letting Harrigan survive because he defeated his enemy. So after talking about all the best parts of this film, the weak component is basically anything to do with the human characters. They just weren't that interesting as our protagonists. I don't really care about any of the characters, so therefore I don't really care if they die. Since the first time we see them is when they are already in the jungle, there isn't any time spent building up their backstories before the action and killing starts. Pretty late in the film, they try to develop their personalities more by having them talk about their kids and past, but it's not enough. They are diverse in looks, origin, weaponry, but they are still just shallow stand-ins, clearly only there for us to witness their inevitable deaths. In a Predator movie, the audience should care about the survival of the prey, or else we might as well be rooting for the hunter. The movie overall does a good job of truly highlighting the predators and more of their customs. It shows us their power dynamics, their weaponry, and how terrifying it would be to be stuck in this situation. But it's too bad I never got attached to the prey, only awaiting to see what the predators would do next. The Predator was the latest sequel and the worst movie in the entire franchise. It honestly feels like this movie could have just been about any alien terrorizing a group of humans on Earth. And it's not even a good film in that context either. It's fun at times, but it's simply another action movie with decent visual effects, and feels like its purpose was to capitalize on a recognizable IP to make money. Any attempts it makes to be different or inclusive falls flat and sometimes comes off as insensitive. At its core, it's about a predator that crash lands on Earth and a sniper, Quinn, that finds his tech. His autistic savant son, Rory, ends up fighting the predator's helmet and gauntlet and decrypts its alien coding. A super predator appears, hunts down the other one, and tries to take the son, claiming his DNA can be used to further evolve the predator bloodline, but ultimately fails when Quinn and his team defeat him. The main problem is that this movie's writing is just, well, it's not good. The director, Shane Black, who was in the original film, said they wanted to elevate the Predator series, but they ended up making the most generic one in the franchise instead. The most glaring script issue is that we have so many neurodivergent characters, but they are still written stereotypically. The son is apparently a savant at puzzles, and reading, and everything, has a photographic memory, sensitive to loud sounds, and is socially awkward. I guess because that's how Hollywood prefers to portray all autistic people. But then in other scenes, he's wisecracking to the government agents even though we were shown that he's uncomfortable around people who aren't his family. It's terribly inconsistent. It's a shame that a movie in 2018 would stereotype autistic people, but it still happens all the time. I mean, Olivia Munn's character literally tells Rory to,
"Can you tell your kid to tone down the psychosis, please?"
And this is the same lady that a few scenes later suggests that he is the next step in the evolutionary chain. I mean, who wrote this? I like the idea of a ragtag group of neurodivergent characters as our heroes, and they can be likable at times. But basically you realize they're just there to die at the end of the movie, so our three main characters don't have to. You have a character who clearly has Tourette syndrome, but everyone just calls him the crazy and loony one. I think they were trying to bring attention to mental health in this movie, but it's just so poorly executed that it's doing the opposite. And as you can tell, it was severely distracting to me from the predator aspect of the film. Anyway, besides all that, there is some predator stuff in there. We get two types of predators and predator dogs or hellhounds, which we've seen a version of in Predators. The super predator is much larger and more intimidating, but since it's so much bigger, it's all CGI and it can be jarring. The past movies heavily relied on special effects, and that grounded the monsters in the same space as our characters. It helped the viewer feel like there was an actual beast stalking in the shadows, ready to stab our heroes with its arm blades. Overall, the predator and the hunt feels like it's taking a backseat to everything else. The super predator hunts the traitor predator, but once they fight, it's over quickly. And at the very end of the film, the predator hunts the group, but not really, because he just leaves after he kills a couple of them and takes the kid. And a lot of the people at the end don't even die from the predator, they die like accidentally. The movie is action-focused, but doesn't have the style or lore Predator 2 and Predators have. It gets in its own way, with plot issues that distract too much from the Predator and ruins its potential as a Predator film. To variable degrees, all the Predator movies are good in their own way, aside from the Predator. Predator established a classic villain by humbling its own representation of the action heroes of its time, with memorable kills and a well-deserved ending that showcases exactly what is needed to survive an encounter with this beast. Prey is a successful prequel that increases the focus on the interesting and at times primal interactions between the prey and its predator, whether it be a snake eating a mouse or an alien hunting Comanche warriors and French warriors. Predator 2 is stylish and expands our understanding of these aliens, although it could have tightened some elements a bit more to truly show off the predator. And Predators concentrates on these creatures the most out of any of the movies, even if it leaves its human characters out to dry. Maybe I can put it this way. Predator and Predators focused on surviving. You throw a group of cocky soldiers in the jungle with their guns. Well, what they knew goes out the window once they learn that they can't just shoot their way out of the situation. Predator 2 and Prey focused on the hunt. Our protagonists flip the script, go out of their way to hunt the predator themselves, to avenge their fallen, and learn how to come out on top. And for the Predator, well, I think you're probably just focused on making money, not doing justice to the Predator character or lore behind it. With Prey being such a big hit, I hope this leads to more unique Predator movies in the franchise, while still stressing what really makes the Predator a staple in the sci-fi genre.